What's going on, guys, in the works? And hopefully you guys all had a wonderful holiday. I know I did. Took a few days off from making videos. But today we're going to be taking a look at some tank gameplay. And I apologize for that horrible joke, but the situation just fit it all too well. But we're going to be focusing on the secondary ammo type, the staff shell, which replaces either your LMG, your canister shell, your HMG. It is a launcher that's mainly for dealing with other vehicles, specifically tanks. I think it works really well on tanks. But you'll notice in that particular battle, I killed that guy abnormally quick. And the reason for that is I'm actually using something that is a big problem here in Battlefield 4, and that is the quick swap mechanic that exists with the staff shell. But before we go too in depth with that, let's talk about the staff shell just by itself. Just what does it do? It is essentially a smart warhead, and what that means is it's like the NBT law. If you fire within the vicinity of a vehicle, it will lock on and destroy it. Okay, doesn't sound that bad, right? Well, it kind of is, because this thing has almost no drop to it. It is essentially a perfectly straight line when it goes across the map. It doesn't take a whole lot of calculations when trying to take out other tanks at long range. And I think this causes a huge problem. Because, exploit aside, which we will talk about, I promise. I know a lot of you guys are probably jonesing to hear what this thing is. It creates an imbalance at long-range tank battles. No longer do you have the need to volley back and forth. You can essentially just rely on your staff shell at long range. You can sit there and you can just keep firing it. If you back behind a cover, the staff shell can actually shoot over cover and still hit the tanks or whatever vehicle you happen to be engaging. And that's a pretty big deal because it makes the tank battles very imbalanced. It makes them not as fun because there's no more calculating how far you need to aim, adjust for the drop of the round you're using. So I personally am not even a huge fan of the staff shell even being in the game, let alone the exploit that exists currently. If you'll notice that I'm killing these tanks and other vehicles very quickly, that is because now there is a cooldown exploit, I guess I'll call it, which essentially makes it so that you can fire your first round, then fire off a staff shell, and then when your second staff shell reloads, you can essentially hit them with both your main round and your staff shell by quick swapping to them instantaneously. A pretty big deal. And it's been existing in the game for 2 months. It's essentially been around since launch. And I figured, with a couple patches, they would eventually get to this particular thing because it's quite game-breaking. It destroys the mechanic of tank battles. But here we are, 10 patches in on PC, and I haven't even seen a word muttered about this exploit. And it's really frustrating. It's gotten to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to make the video. I'm going to do something that just pains me because I hate talking about exploits. I hate talking about problems in the game. I just want to bring you guys videos that are about fun. But I am a tank. I guess you could say I'm a tank whore. That's as simple as I can say it. I like to tank. That is my favorite thing to do in the Battlefield games when it comes to vehicles. If you don't see me out there being an NG ground pounding, you typically will see me hop in a tank. And it's a problem because tank battles now last all but maybe 10 seconds tops. And it really gets to the point where you only see good tank drivers essentially using the Sabo round with the staff shell, and that's a big deal. It kind of destroys the infantry aspect. You can't go into a flag as a tank and expect to do really well. I will point out, you may notice I'm getting a lot of kills with the staff shell just on infantry. That's because I've gotten pretty good at it. I know where you need to hit the infantry people in order to get the splash damage you need in order to kill them, because the staff shell can be deadly on infantry if you direct impact them and get an explosion near their feet. Typically, if you just direct impact them and it goes and explodes out of the range of the actual player, you usually don't get a kill, oddly enough. You get hit by a giant tank round rocket and somehow you survive, which I find that to be kind of strange, but it exists, and I guess it's for balancing reasons, which makes sense. But in a nutshell, the point of this video is to basically say, hey DICE, this needs to be freaking fixed, because I am getting very frustrated that I can't run my preferred loadout of HMG. I can't go into a server and expect to use anything but this particular loadout, which is very frustrating. I always go into a server saying, hey, I'm gonna give this server a chance to prove themselves, and if they're not using it, I'll switch to my HMG, because it's as simple as that. I don't want to use it. I don't want to be that guy. But when you're dealing with other tanks that are using it and just absolutely dominating, and I mean dominating our armor, I mean, look at how quick I killed that guy. this is ridiculous how quickly I am doing damage to him. It's just volley after volley. There's no chance in the world for that guy to do anything, and it's just not fair. It's just not a balanced way to have the game in. It destroys the vehicle aspect. If you're in an LAV, you know, God bless your soul, because you're gonna die. Let me tell you guys a little story. Actually, I snuck up on a guy who was zoned out tanking on Silk Road. He was basically on a ledge, had no idea I was behind him. I snuck up on him with the LAV, hit him directly in the butt with a tow missile, dealing a lot of damage to him. No, not surprisingly, he pops his APS. You know, that's typically what you do in that situation. Well, that gives him enough time to whip around and volley a shot with the HE round, which he happened to be using in this situation, followed by a staff shell, dealing a lot of damage to my LAV, including a critical hit. And that basically ends the battle right there. He won. He won at that very moment, because by the time I was able to recover from that particular thing, he's already got his next staff shell loaded, and he finishes me off. I know, quite a tale of woe, but it's just a good example of how other vehicles are basically at a huge disadvantage when it comes to dealing with these tanks exploiting this, because they can't do it. The LAV doesn't have, you know, the counter to this. Other tanks can just put it on and use it themselves. Typically, the better tanker will win, because they know how to avoid the staff shell. They know where they need to be to not get destroyed by it. But even good tankers, if I sneak up on them, you know, I've snuck up on some really good tankers that were exploiting this from behind, and defeated them, because basically if I catch them off guard, they've got no chance, because the first shot wins when you're talking about this exploit. So it's a big deal. It really made me frustrated to have to make this video, especially on such a good run right here. This is a 32-0 run with the tank. This could have been probably a 50-0 run if I didn't have to use this stupid staff shell. And the reason why is because I wouldn't have to die to these infantry, which eventually kill me, because the HMG is much more efficient in taking out infantry than the staff shell round. So it's kind of crippling the whole tank battle situation right now. If you want to be a tanker, if you want to go into maps where there's tanks versus other tanks, you're going to have to consider, do I have to run staff shell? And most likely the answer is going to be yes, because everybody else will be doing it and they will be exploiting the quick swap. So I encourage you guys to talk about this issue, to get it out there and just have conversation about it, because that's the way we get issues fixed. I will take a week of more people using this glitch by making this video if the end result is that they actually fix it, because at the end of the day, that's all I really care about. I've been living with this for the past 2 months. What's another week of everybody else using it? I mean, you know, like I said, most people already know about it. Most people already know how to make other people rage when it comes to it. As you see my 32-0 run come to an end there. But like I said, I encourage DICE to make this a priority to get this fixed. I really am a person who loves the game and loves to see it improve with every patch. That is very important to me. And I think this should be something that is prioritized to be fixed in whatever patch is coming down the road here in the future. So I know there are probably a lot of people who are on holiday, and I'm not a huge fan of spamming the devs and telling them to fix it, but this is important. This is something that I personally feel is important and needs to be addressed in the game. But that's all I've got for today, so I will see you guys next time. Peace.